another episode of Science Matter, a research magazine where we discuss science matters and emphasize that science really does matter. So today we have with us Dr. Nokuthula, I call her Dr. Nox, the Deputy Director in the Business Advancement of the NRF. So there's something that is going on around. It's called Open Science. I asked Dr. Nox to come in and talk to us about what is this Open Science thing that we are seeing in the NRF website. But before I even take you further with this, we're going to just stay tuned. Dr. Nox, can you please introduce yourself to our people there?
Yes, thank you, Pedro, for having me in this Science Matter recording. And I'm very happy to talk about Open Science. So, for me, just as a background, as you said, I work as a Deputy Director at the NRF, works mostly on open science and partnerships. So, of course, today we're going to talk about open science, but as you will see when we continuously talk about it, how it fits in partnership and collaboration.
Yes. So, the open science, actually, what is it? And why did you guys start this open science initiative?
Yeah, so open science actually, I mean, it's mostly started by researchers. It's a very grassroots movement or activism, I would say, in science. So when we use the word science in open science, we mean every process that produces knowledge. It could be science, core science, engineering, or humanities, everybody that is a researcher that produces knowledge.
Yes.
And when you say produces knowledge, we mean also other types of knowledge systems beside the hardcore knowledge that we know that we learn at universities. We also mean indigenous knowledge, cultural knowledge, anything that can improve the global challenges that we face as humans. So open science itself means that it's the way to do research or the way to produce knowledge openly. What does it mean? It means that when you are doing this, it must be open to everyone to see, to use, to access for free. It then must be available, if you can do that, it means it must be available in as many languages as possible. Because if somebody is accessing something in English and they don't speak in English, it means it's really not accessible.
Okay, didn't think of that.
It means that if somebody, although you have it there in digital platforms, if somebody has to pay to access it, it's not accessible.
True.
So then we think of knowledge as getting knowledge, that's one way. But we also, when we mean open science, we mean that you, Mpendulo, and I, and somebody else can then also input into the knowledge system. So how does the knowledge system open to everybody contributing and their contribution being accepted? Instead of saying, oh, so this research was done in the US, is good. This research is done in Africa, so that is not open. Because the contribution in knowledge doesn't have equal footing. So this is the holistic principle of open science, which fortunately, the recommendation was signed by all UN member states in UNESCO in November 2021. But this has been started more than 20 years back when people really were thinking that in universities or research institutions could not access knowledge, you had to pay to get an article. So it started like that, but it grew broader into not just paying for journals, but in the whole system of science and science engagement.
Yeah, that is so true, because I remember when I was doing my master's, I never published a paper, but you know, in your thesis, you must find papers that you would reference. You would sometimes see maybe an abstract or something like, this is so related, and then when you click, you have to pay a certain amount. Does this mean that with your platform, I'm not sure how I'll be able to access even those that should be paid for in other platforms?
Yes, so this is now the tricky part, that the knowledge system generation is controlled commercially. But the funny part is that most of the knowledge is produced through public funding. but the ownership of the knowledge sits with journal, which are commercial entities. So as long as people who participate in knowledge generation continuously put the knowledge in the hands of commercial publishers, we will have this problem.
Okay.
So it is funny, I always say this, that most people in general who are now contributing to knowledge systems are learned people, university professors, people who have PhDs. It's about 95% of them. But if you take the system right now, is that, as you said, if I publish a paper, I am funded, for example, I'll use the NRF, funds the project. Then after I have found my findings, I then write a journal, but I then submit that paper into a commercial publisher. The funny part is that then the publisher will ask me to say, oh, the work you've done is good. However, can you please sign over the copyrights to the publisher? They then own the paper. You just have this prestige that my paper has been published. But the knowledge now solely resides with the publisher. Then they sell your paper to other people. You will even have to buy your own paper, because once it's in the journal and then edited form, you cannot just download it because you were the author. No, you don't get free rights. You will still have to click and buy. So I'll make an example. Almost in South Africa, all the universities that pay publishing fees, we actually buy nearly 50% of content that is produced in South Africa already. We produced it, we gave it to the publisher, but the next time somebody needs to access it, they have to pay for it. So it's a bit of a weird system, but it is. I don't want to be abrupt, but it is supported by learned people, which in reality you think they should question the system.
Okay, so I'm sorry to come in, but will open science bring in a more friendly environment for us to submit our papers?
Yes, so what we're then trying to promote, which will come a little bit later in our discussion, that we'll be discussing in the summit in Cape Town, is how do we create scholarly publishing platforms that are open and accessible and are financially viable for everyone. The platforms themselves, because their digital infrastructure are not free, can be supported somehow, but the universities and the researchers shouldn't pay to contribute and get information from the platform.
That's true.
Because if then governments or other organizations are already supporting researchers, instead of taking those funds and paying in commercial publishers, they can support this platform. Then the researchers are always publishing in these types of open digital platforms that everybody has equal access to and equal contribution to.
Wow, this is so amazing and insightful. When I was just saying open science, I was open science, Cape Town conference, but now that you're explaining it, it's actually deeper, and I can even feel, all the work that I did for my master's can be 3 years, 2 years, whatever years. You'd have to buy that work, but I did it daily. Some people, they don't even sleep when they are doing their research. So talking about the conference that is happening in Cape Town, I mean, when is it happening?
It's happening in December. So, of course, as I was talking about open science, I was concentrating a lot on knowledge generation. There are other parts of open science, like citizen science. How do we invite or include citizens in the process of doing science? Because we have seen that when researchers produce science by itself, it may be good, but if society doesn't understand what is being talked about, it is useless. So in the case of COVID-19, we had this problem that, of course, I am not going to debate if the advice given by science was good or bad, but there was advice that government wanted the public to accept from the scientists. But because the public has not have been interacting with the scientists for a long period of time, they were divided, they were not accepting that advice. Where else they were going? They were going to social media, to WhatsApp groups, to Facebook to say, no, if you have COVID, maybe in South Africa, you'll be fine. Or if you have COVID, you do this, or there's no COVID, it's a conspiracy. They were getting this because they had no trust in science.
Yeah.
But if we do science openly, the public can interrogate what is being done, and they can also contribute and give feedback to science to say, this is what we think it works in our society. Can you check if it really works? So everybody accepts that they are within a community. So this is a holistic part of working in science, and then because you work like that, so it's more collaborative the way you do science. So the conference or the summit in Cape Town concentrates a lot on the knowledge generation, on the publishing part, not on society, because it's quite big. So there are different meetings that concentrate on different stuff. So there is called the summit, it's called the Diamond Summit, because we have about 3 main events happening. We have the Open Science in the South, which will start on Monday on the 9th till 11 on Wednesday, which is mostly aimed at African participants. To think about what does open science mean for the community in Africa, because yes, the overarching principle is the same, but the mechanism may be different from region to region. In Europe, they may do it differently. In the US, they may do it. In Africa, we need to come together and discuss how we want to approach. What are the initiatives that are going on around, and we think we should support and then leverage and then put them at scale. Then the following, from Wednesday to Friday, we have then what we call the Global Diamond Conference, where then all the international people come. So this is why this year we hosted them together. So we want to make sure that the participants or the researchers or the scientists from the continent can participate globally and have their say in what it means to participate in this open access or open science publishing endeavor.
Oh, okay. So the call, who will be attending and who will be presenting this?
Yeah, so what we have done with our partners, which is us, the NRF and IRD, which is a French research agency, we have said that we want the African cohort to present at the conference. So we opened the call for abstracts from beginning of April till end of June. That they submitted this abstract, we selected this abstract, and they were presented or are being presented at the conference. However, we have seen that we have a bit more abstracts. We are thinking on how to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity, maybe by presenting a poster. Because the most important thing to us is to get everybody in one room and discuss these important issues. Because, for example, if you want to publish in science, I'm a scientist by training, life science by training, so if you want to publish a paper, for example, Nature, you have to pay at least $5,000 to $10,000 for one paper.
Wow.
So that is in South African range anything about 100,000 to 200,000. 200,000 is about the average grant that a researcher gets to do research in South Africa. They have to pay them to publish one paper. This is not reasonable. We think it's tough in South Africa. Can you imagine somebody somewhere in Central Africa? They do not even have 1,000 rand to do research. You asking them, although their work is good, they submit it, they say, okay, it's ready to publish, you have to pay. They can't. So we want to bring everybody in one room and really discuss to try and move away from that type of activity to see how we value this open system. However, on the side of the scientists, we also need to discuss how do we accept these different models to say, because it's not published by commercial, we will think it's not good. So we must also accept and promote this, both at researcher level and at university level, that it works towards somebody's career promotion, not to look only these ones that you get paid for or paid to access to get.
Yeah, that's so true. I was actually thinking about that when you are talking about if it's in Africa, they won't accept. Would you keep the standard of accepting a paper the same as commercial, or when you go a little bit down? Because I think that is what measures how good.
Yeah, you see, this is another side discussion, which with the commercial publishers, maybe not all of them, they're trying. The person who makes the decision if the paper is good or not, sometimes it's not based on the paper. For example, if somebody publishes a paper, I don't know, on astrophysics, and they're in University of Limpopo, automatically there's some bias. Somebody sitting in the US, they say, what is University of Limpopo? There's no way they can do this work.
Yeah.
You get things. So you already get inbuilt bias. So sometimes when we have this discussion, we think these commercial publishers that have been a while, they have the best quality systems. They don't. They actually have systems, yes, that works for them, but they are very biased to the global north.
Oh, okay.
And they see also the main author is Bendulo's BA is like, oh, this one no, but if it's this person from MIT, already the paper is good. Just the institution name, the paper is good. So these divides happen across the whole value chain. Never mind then when you talk about gender disparities and other equity issues on this. So these platforms, for me, sometimes I say that they should more or less work like social media. Let everybody publish everything. Let the community decide if it's good or not one or two people decide if it's good or not.
According to citation, let us decide who we want to cite. This was so insightful, Dr. Knox. So if someone is watching and like, oh, I wanna know more what is upcoming on Open Science, or I'd like to follow the movement, how can they go about, or the next summit, how can I submit, where should I be applying for this?
Yeah, so at the African Open Science platform here at the NRF, we have a unit that is trying to consolidate or coordinate all these activities in Africa. So we have a lot of activities that we do with universities in South Africa, where if they want to have such talks on training or more in-depth how to participate in Open Science, we offer this as the unit, but of course coordinating with partners who are more technical. We also think that we have appointed nodes in different parts of the continent. In Egypt, we have one node. In Kenya, that will look at East Africa, in Malawi, and we are looking at more partners to try and spread this conversation. But on the conferencing side, I mean, in February 2025, with UNESCO and CERN in Switzerland, at the NRF, we'll be running training on digital libraries, which is based on Open Science. So it's digital library training for all African countries. So we're bringing in at least 50 people fully sponsored between the NRF and the CERN and UNESCO that will be here for the whole week being trained on how to build libraries that are more closer to open access principles than libraries that as they are now.
Wow, this was very great and insightful. Thank you so much, Dr. Knox. If you'd like to come and discuss Science Matter or emphasize that science really does matter, please use the email on the screen to write to us so that you can book your space in the studio to come and visit us. If you want to take us through your lab, we can come with your cameras. We are so very much mobile. Thank you so much, Dr. Knox. Is there anything that I forgot that we should
I think we covered most of the subject. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.